I'm Pat, your virtual host, and this is Voice Over Work, an audiobook sampler. Where do you listen? Today's episode is brought to you by Mutant Media Group, author Gary Lachman, and Spoken to Media. Today is Monday, February 5, 2024. Renowned esoteric writer Gary Lachman has been recording his own precognitive dreams for 40 years. In this unique and intriguing book, Lachman recounts the discovery that he dreams ahead of time and argues convincingly that this extraordinary ability is, in fact, shared by all of us.
The idea for writing this book came from a talk I gave in Brompton Cemetery in London in the spring of 2019. The talk, given as part of a series of events entitled On the Borderlands of Sleep, was on Hypnagogia and Precognitive dreams. I've written about Hypnagogia and Hypnagogic hallucinations in some of my other books. Readers familiar with those will, I trust, pardon some repetition here. The hypnagogic state is the curious liminal condition each of us enters at least twice a day, when falling asleep and when waking up. There is some debate about the differences between these two transitional states, but this really shouldn't concern us. The hypnagogic state is a half-dream state, as the esoteric philosopher P.D. Ouspensky called it. It's midway between our usual waking state and unconsciousness. Most of us pass through this midway point without recognizing it, but with practice, we can learn how to remain in it, hovering, as it were, between full wakefulness and sleep. While on this threshold, we can have some unusual experiences. We can watch dreams form and see them with a startling vividness, while yet still being awake and aware of our surroundings. We are in two states of consciousness at the same time, simultaneously conscious and unconscious, or at least conscious enough to be critically aware of the symbols and images we associate with dreams, and that we believe have their source in the unconscious mind. One of the characteristics of this unusual state is that it is auto-symbolic, as the early Freudian Herbert Silberer discovered. That is, the images, symbols, and voices one hears in this condition are, or can be, symbolic of one's physical, emotional, and mental state at the time. Let me point out that I am aware of the paradox of being consciously unconscious, and of the difficulties involved in talking about the unconscious as if it were a concrete thing, a part of us, in the same way that our arms or legs are. But I should warn readers that if paradoxes put you off, you may well want to find another book. As we go along, we will run into more than a few of them here. Hypnagogia is the name coined by the psychologist and philosopher Andreas Mavromatis, who wrote an exhaustive book on the subject, for the visions, images, symbols, and auditory hallucinations that accompany this curious state. It's also a state linked to a variety of paranormal or psychic phenomena, one of which is precognition. Hypnagogic visions are also related to various esoteric ideas about consciousness. Not a few of the figures in the history of esotericism and the exploration of inner states that I have written about, such as C.G. Jung and Swedenborg, were well-practiced hypnagogists. Precognition. The simplest definition of precognition is that it is having knowledge of some event before it happens. It is having knowledge about something before you should have it, before it was by all ordinary standards even possible for you to have it. If the definition of cognition is the mental process involved in knowing, learning, and understanding things, from a dictionary taken at random, and if the prefix pre means before or previous to, then precognition is the act of knowing something before we know it. And this is something that science, as well as reason and logic, tells us is impossible.
Thank you for listening to Voiceover Work, an audiobook sampler. Where do you listen? This episode has been brought to you by Newton Media Group. Check us out at newtonmg.com.